Welcome, everyone. This is a special once a month now with our biochemist, Rik Deitsch. And we've been following him for quite a while, following from place to place to place. And now Rick and Neil have this amazing company called Avini Health. So, Rick, I'd like you to just let everybody hear some of your amazing credentials, and then you've got it.
Thanks, Howard. Thanks for bringing me on. I always say under promise and over deliver. So you're supposed to say, here's a guy who's going to talk, and then they have no expectations. Um, but I'll give just a brief background. I'm a biochemist, but I'm both a nutritional and a pharmaceutical biochemist. So most of my training in undergraduate, graduate school, postgraduate was on drug discovery. I was a pharmaceutical biochemist. I did something called computer adaptive drug design. We designed new drugs on a computer. And in that case, I worked on the first cone snail venom drug that at the time we called ziconotide. It was eventually launched as Prialt. It's a drug for pain from cone snail venom. I worked on camptothecin analogs at Duke University Comprehensive Cancer Center. At the Cancer Center, I worked with two Nobel Prize winners, Monroe Wall, who invented Taxol, and Gertrude Elion, who won a Nobel Prize for work in anti-rejection medication. So in that case, I worked on something called camptothecin, and those drugs were eventually launched as irinotecan, topotecan, and 5-hydroxy-7-methoxycamptothecin. So I had a lot of drug research through college and graduate school and postgraduate. But believe it or not, it didn't pay a lot of money, and I got married, and my wife has very expensive tastes, and I had to go make money. So I started consulting business doing computer adaptive drug design, and I worked for large clients, Bayer Biologics and Pfizer and Merck. But then I got a job at Rexall Sundown. And Rexall Sundown at the time was the largest manufacturer of dietary supplements in the world. And they had a division called Rexall Showcase, which was a network marketing division. And this was, even though I heard of network marketing before, my father was actually Nu Skin and Melaleuca when I was a kid, and I kind of made fun of him for that. Um, but I can tell you that my story with that is, and I'm not making fun of Melaleuca. It's a great company. But my father came to me with these Melaleuca products when I was in high school, and I was even doing research when I was in high school. And I said, "So this Melaleuca oil is so amazing. It cures all disease, and you can wash your car with it. That's awesome." I just thought it was a little silly. The story was a little silly. But I never been in a network marketing company or worked for a network marketing company. So here I was a scientist, and now my job is to develop these products for Rexall Sundown, but also to explain the products to the network marketers. And I see some people that knew me at Rexall on this call. It was a really interesting thing for a scientist to get on the stage and explain why I made the products I made, what they do, and how they're going to work with you, and then to answer your questions about how they're actually working with you. So it was fascinating to me, and I got hooked. I love distributors. I love the fact that I get to talk to the end users of my products all the time. That doesn't happen usually in big pharma. You make a drug, you're not talking to all the patients that are benefiting from your product. Um, so that was Rexall. I at one time, and I told Howard this. Neil and I sat down and we went over all the products I developed when I was at Rexall and the sales of those products, and it was over $4 billion, and just the products I made. So that was in like '06, '07. Right, and that's where Neil and I said we really should just do this for ourselves, because we're making a lot of other people a lot of money. But I did over 50 different clinical studies when I was at Rexall. After I left Rexall, which became Unici Network, then I developed products for Weora, and then got back into my MS research in 2012. I did co-author two books: Are You Age Wise? A Guide to Healthy Aging, and Invisible Killers: The Truth Behind Environmental Genocide. That was all that toxins in the environment. It kind of supports what I've been doing ever since, which is defining what is our toxic exposure, how are we exposed to the toxins, how do they get in our body? Once the toxins are in our body, what do they do to us? How do they increase our risk for disease and dysfunction? And then I don't want to just scare people. I want to give people hope. So how do you avoid toxic exposure, mitigate the risk of toxic exposure, and actively detoxify? And that leads me to all the work I've done with our zeolite and now Detoxolite, our micronized activated zeolite. So we've had all these kind of soft starts, because a lot of you know that we brought my product to different companies, and through no fault of ours, through no fault of the product, those companies went away. We were with one company that was doing really well, and then the CEO got indicted on 32 counts of wire fraud and embezzlement. Had nothing to do with the products. And so then we went to another company, and that got sold, and another company, and finally I was actually giving up. If it was up to me, believe it or not, and I hate to say this now because of what's happened, but Avini would not exist because I was busy. I'm working on a couple of books. I'm working on my drug research. We've a drug and clinical study for multiple sclerosis. We have another one for Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. I'm working on a drug for adrenal neuropathy, which is leukodystrophy. So I was busy with my drug research. And I did not want to get heartbroken again with a network marketing company. And Neil said that all the problems always are the greedy owners and the poor management. So if we're the owners and the managers, we're the only ones that can screw it up. And I said, okay, I really did want to do it. Neil is very smart. Neil's a negotiator. He called my wife and he convinced my wife that we should do it. And then my wife told me I had to do it. And so we did launch Avini Health in May of 2022. So we're just over 3 years old and we're killing it. We have over 14,000 distributors, over 12,000 customers. We're in the US, Canada, US Virgin Islands, Trinidad, Tobago, and we just opened the UK a couple of months ago. And we're looking at the European Union and we're looking at Asia. It's very, very exciting. And what's more exciting is that probably everyone on this call has had benefits from our products. And that's what Neil and I call our emotional gratuity, our emotional compensation, when we hear these amazing testimonials of how we change lives with these amazing products. And so that's really what does it for me. So that's my bio in a nutshell. I can go into other drug research, and I've got literally 1,000 stories. I love telling war stories about all the times I've been doing different projects. But the most exciting thing I'm doing right now, of course, working with Avini Health, and especially Cell Defender, which is the tip of the spear. So today I'm going to talk about the Detoxolite journey, how we wind up with Detoxolite, what Cell Defender is, and how it works. Okay. Oh, Sandy's parents did new skin. That's so exciting. So I was first approached in somewhere around 1995 with some researchers that were working with zeolites. And I was already doing my drug research. I was working for in dietary supplements, and I saw this interesting concept of clathration. And to try and explain that, a lot of people know what chelation is. Chelation is you have a molecule that is usually negatively charged, and then it looks for something that's conversely positively charged. So, for example, EDTA has a -2 charge, and when EDTA comes in your body, it's kind of floating around. The molecule kind of looks like a hand, and it floats around, and then it grabs onto something with a +2 charge. Once it's neutral, you simply urinate it out. And so EDTA is used to chelate things like lead, which has a +2 charge. The problem is all chelators are only charge specific. They're not, no other criteria. So EDTA is looking for anything with a +2 charge. So it takes out lead, but it also takes out calcium, magnesium, and other things that are good for you. So when you're chelating with EDTA, you have to keep adding in other minerals to take the place of what you're losing because of the EDTA. So the fascinating thing about the zeolite, and I'll go a little deeper into it, is the zeolite, because of its pores that it has in it, its cage-like structure, has all the space inside. It's not a chelator. It doesn't grab onto things. Things migrate inside and they're trapped inside. So that concept is called clathration. And there are a lot of things that clathrate. I mean, activated charcoal can clathrate, and bentonite clays, all sorts of clays can clathrate. But the zeolite is unique for a lot of reasons. For one thing, the zeolite is a rigid structure. If you get a clay like bentonite clay and you wet it, it swells up, and then when it dries, it shrinks. The zeolite doesn't do that. It's a rigid structure. It doesn't swell or shrink if it gets wet. It's also incredibly stable. It's incredibly hard to destroy a zeolite. It takes over 800 degrees Celsius, more than 5 hours to break a zeolite cage, the bars of the cage. It's also amphoteric, which means it exists just as well in strong acid as strong base. So it's an incredibly stable compound. So it's very different than any other clathrator out there. So we use a zeolite called clinoptilolite. Clinoptilolite was discovered well over 200 years ago, along with the first zeolites. The first zeolites were actually discovered in the mid 1700s, but it was called zeolite because someone took powdered rock and they heated it up and steam came out. Steam eluted from it. So zeolite literally means boiling stone or boiling rock. Why does steam come out? Well, zeolite structure, and I have let's see if I can do my video here. Video settings. I'm learning how to use Zoom very well here. So video, virtual background. Here we go. So here's my zeolite cage behind me. Okay. So clinoptilolite has a cage-like structure. It's repeating 10-sided and 8-sided rings. 10-sided, 8-sided, 10-sided, 8-sided, repeating over and over again, up and down, left and right. And you can see the size of the cage, 4.2 angstroms by 7.5 by 4.2 angstroms and 7.5 angstroms by 4.2 angstroms. That tells you what will and will not fit in the zeolite cage. Now, if I did a space filling model, so you can see the molecules that it surrounds the vertices, you'd see that two sides of the cage, two opposite sides of the cage, have big and small pores. Two opposite sides of the cage only have small pores, and two opposite sides of the cage have no pores at all. It's just flat and completely filled up. So the space filling fills up the cage. So you imagine a die, like a 6-sided die, and two sides have big pores and small pores, two sides only have small pores, two sides have no pores at all. So you realize that small things are much more likely to get into the zeolite than larger things. So that's something to understand too. So we use a zeolite called clinoptilolite, has over 800-year history in traditional medicine. There's whole societies in India called geophasics that have been eating this stuff for 800 years. It's part of general health. In the United States, it was long understood that zeolites were a detox agent in animals. I tell this story. There's a parrot in West Africa, and it eats a poison berry. So it's a berry that's in a tree. It's poisonous, and most creatures can't eat it. And for many years, biologists thought this bird was just immune to the poison. But at some point, someone looked at the bird and tried to figure out why it wasn't susceptible to the poison. And someone decided to follow it. So the birds eat the berry and then they fly 10 to 15 miles away to a cliffside and they chip away the minerals of the cliffside and they eat the minerals. That is zeolite. And the zeolite stops the poison from the berries. So these parrots have figured out how to eat these berries and not die. You know, that's fascinating. That's nature at its best, you know? So what does the zeolite do? Well, we've used it, like I said, for detoxification. It's been used in animal feed for over 100 years. It's been used in water filtration, air purification. It's been used in cement as a cement mixer. When Chernobyl went off after the Chernobyl accident, they actually dropped 3,000 metric tons, some huge amount of clinoptilolite zeolite on top of the reactor. They call it capping. So it's part of the cement that capped the reactor, knowing that the zeolite would trap radioactive particles, radioactive cesium and strontium. So it not only cemented off the reactor, it trapped excess radiation before it could get out. So this is something that was well understood. And then after Chernobyl, after the incident, the Russian government, the Finnish government, the Dutch government actually made flour with clinoptilolite zeolite in it and told people to bake with it and feed their animals with it. So they made cookies with it so it would help get radioactive particles out of people. And there were 2 studies done in goats that showed eating cookies with the flour in it, the goats excreted 15 times the amount they would of radioactive cesium and strontium. So it's a 15-fold increase in excretion. So this is stuff that's really well established. So the zeolite, because of the size of the pores, like small, highly charged particles. It so happens all things that are bad for us are small and highly charged. Mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, tin, bismuth, aluminum, antimony. They tend to be smaller atoms with a higher positive charge. The things that are good for us, like magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium, even at small amounts, micro amounts, boron, manganese, copper, tend to be larger with a lower charge. So the zeolite, just God's creation, it knows the bad stuff and takes out the bad stuff. It really doesn't take out any of the good stuff. Now, I'm saying that mechanically, you can see how that works, but there's clinical studies that actually look at that. Farmers that have been feeding zeolite to animals forever were concerned that we know it's preventing aflatoxicosis. We know it's taking toxins out of the animal feed and preventing the animals from getting sick. Is it also removing any of the good stuff? So in the 70s, they did huge studies across the country in goats, cows, and sheep, and ruminants. And they gave some of the animals their regular feed, some the feed with the zeolite. And they were looking to see how much nutrients will be removed by the zeolite. That was the plan. They were just seeing in gradation, how bad is the zeolite? How many nutrients are going to remove? And they were surprised to find that all the animals that had zeolite actually had higher nutritional status. So not only did the zeolite not remove the good stuff, but because it was removing the bad stuff, it removed competition from absorption. So the animals got better value from the food they were eating. So we call the zeolite as a side effect a nutritional enabler. By removing the toxins and heavy metals, it gives room for the good stuff to be better absorbed and utilized. So it's a very cool little side effect of detoxification. Takes out the bad, doesn't take out the good. Besides heavy metals, we know the zeolite takes out volatile organic compounds, flat compounds like benzene, toluene, dioxins, phthalates, furans. So remember, I told you two of the sides of the zeolite have no pores at all; they're just flat. Well, we found that a volatile organic compound can lay across that flat side of the zeolite and start to share electrons into the zeolite cage. When that happens, the volatile organic takes on a slight positive charge. That attracts another negative charge zeolite to the other side of it and makes a zeolite sandwich. So I have a picture I show in my presentations that was published in the journal Active Crystallography. I usually ask people if they have a subscription to Active Crystallography, right? Everyone should have a subscription to Active Crystallography. Amazing journal on crystal structure. So I asked the question, because the volatile organic compounds are flat, they can be trapped very easily by the zeolite. And the question is there any good compounds that have that flat structure? And the answer is no. The flat structure of that volatile organic compound is what makes them so dangerous. Because they're flat, they can slide into our phospholipid membranes and get into our cells. Because they're flat, they can actually go into the turns of the DNA, the double helix of the DNA. It can go into the turns of DNA and lock itself in. It's called intercalation. It can intercalate into the DNA, which is what makes them cause cancer, why volatile organic compounds are so dangerous. So I think it's amazing that the flat structure of the volatiles is what makes them so dangerous, but that's also the exact thing that allows the zeolite to capture it. So I love that. I love the thing that makes it dangerous and what makes it available to the zeolite. It's very apropos. So that's my word of the day, apropos. So volatile organic compounds, heavy metals, we know the zeolite's fantastic. It's been used for over 800 years. So I was introduced to this in the 1990s. And I saw this product that's still in the market today. It's called Megamins. It's sold primarily in Europe. And a couple of times they didn't get approved in England because when they tested the product, it had a lot of mercury in it. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So I looked at their product and I actually told them that there were problems with their product. And I saw what those problems were. The first thing is the zeolite particles were too big. Their average particle size was anywhere from 10 to 200 microns, like a rough granular sand. I said it's great for digestive detox, but it's not going to be absorbed into the bloodstream. You need to get it under 5 microns, preferably under 2 microns, to be absorbed into the bloodstream. The second issue is that it was dirty. It had mercury in it, which is why it couldn't be approved in England. But you got to think about this. If you see a zeolite mine site, a giant mine site, the zeolite is nature's filter. When air is blowing through that mine site, when water's flowing over it, the zeolite is sucking up those toxins from the environment, just sucking them up. And so when you get the zeolite from the mine site, it's full of heavy metals and volatile organic compounds. Now, I'm not saying the zeolite is dangerous. In fact, in the United States, clinoptilite zeolite has GRAS status, generally recognized as safe. So the zeolite is so good at holding on to all that stuff, it's not dangerous to eat. It's not going to get into your body. But if the zeolite is already full of all these toxins, how much benefit is going to be when you ingest it? So I said, you got to do something to clean it out, to get that stuff out. And so it was 5 or 6 years of research, late 90s through the early 2000s. I came up with two processes, micronization and activation. Micronization is the concept of reducing the particle size of the zeolites. So I started just like everybody else. I use meshing, just shake it through meshes. I use chalcination, which is ball mills. You put a bunch of ball bearings in a little kind of clothing like a dryer, and it tumbles with the ball bearings and crushes the powder over and over again. But you can't get consistency with that. So I actually invented a system using centrifugation at high pressure to crush the zeolite over and over and over again with that high pressure. And the aperture for my machine is 1 micron. So it means that the zeolite can't be more than 1 micron when it comes out of the machine. So our average particle size is smaller than 1 micron. Our smallest particles are 347 nanometers. Now, I've known this for years. We perfected the process years ago, but just recently we actually made an investment. We bought a particle size analyzer in-house. So we're in the process of validating that machine because I want to not only prove to you guys by doing particle size analysis, our particle size, but lots of competitors out there are saying they're smaller than us. And I'm telling you, it's just not possible. It's not possible. They don't know how to micronize zeolite. If you're just using chalcination, you'll never get it that small. And most people don't know how to micronize the zeolite properly. As an example, there's one company out there that says that their zeolite, I just told you, my smallest particle is 347 nanometers. They said their zeolite is 0.9 nanometers. Well, if you look at the zeolite behind me and you look at that ring, that's 7.5 angstroms across, that's 0.75 nanometers. Okay. So it's basically 0.9 nanometers would be a little bigger than that one hole. So how can you have a zeolite cage that's the size of one hole? You know, can you have a prison the size of the space between the bars? It's just not possible. So it tells you they don't understand what they're talking about. They don't understand how zeolites work, you know? And so I'll talk a little bit about the competitors that have chopped up after all of this. So the other question I get is, you're micronizing zeolite. Aren't you destroying it when you micronize it? And the answer is no. We're not breaking the cage of the zeolite. We're simply making smaller cages. My best example is diamonds. Everyone knows diamonds are one of the hardest substances known to man, and you can crush a diamond, right down to diamond dust. But every particle of diamond dust, it's still a diamond. It's just a really tiny diamond and has all the same properties of that big diamond, that crystal structure. In fact, diamond dust has a lot of industrial uses. They put in drill bits, they put in the needle for turntables. You know, they have a lot of uses for diamond dust because it's still an incredibly hard substance and has that crystal structure. So we're just making smaller cages that can now get into your bloodstream and be a systemic detoxifier. So that process we call micronization. The next process we call activation. How do we clean the zeolite to remove all the toxins that come with it? And so it's a pretty straightforward process. It did take me years to perfect, but we basically use heat, ultra purified water and heat. The heat drives off the volatile organic compounds, and then we use natural acids to force the heavy metals out of the zeolite cage through cationic exchange. The process does take 5 to 6 days. We've gotten better and better and better. We're much more efficient. I'm cooking a batch right now. I'm making about 4,500 units, so we're going to fill tomorrow. So I'm in the office now, the lab, well, you guys, anyone who had a tour here, you know, the liquid fill room. So I have my vessels in the liquid fill room. So I'm making 3 vessels tonight. But the micronization, the activation process is really interesting because we do get almost everything out of the zeolite, heavy metals and volatile organic compounds. So I'm not measuring now, but many times I've actually captured the volatiles coming off and I've captured the heavy metals coming off. I want to see what's coming out of the zeolite. And it tells me batch to batch how clean my zeolite is going in. And one time I was running the volatile organics through a gas chromatograph and I couldn't identify one of the peaks. I mean, I saw toluene and benzene and phthalates and furans, but one of the peaks I couldn't identify. So I sent it off to a third-party lab. It came back as diesel fuel exhaust. I was fascinated by that because what's that's telling me is, even if someone says that their zeolite mine site is pristine, it's clean, they don't have to activate their zeolite, they don't have to clean their zeolite, even the equipment that's mining the zeolite is creating toxins the zeolite is sucking up, that diesel fuel exhaust. So if they're not doing a process like my activation process, then that's in that product. Okay. So that's our micronization activation process. It did take me many years to develop. I did sell this product through another company for many years. Just so you know, to date, we've sold about 8 million bottles of this. So it's not like you guys are the first. We know it's effective. We know it works. We know it's safe. When I first started talking about this and people got all excited, we heard these amazing testimonials, some people started to knock me off, which is, you know, it was surprising to me. I thought people would just want to talk to me about getting it for themselves, not trying to make it themselves, because I knew how hard it was to make. But a lot of people just started throwing zeolite in a bucket with a scoop and saying it's better. You know, there's one guy, Mike Portnoy at Avini Health. He has a big jug with powdered zeolite in a scoop. And he said, Rick's only giving you like 10 milligrams zeolite. You get a big scoop, it's like 50 milligrams zeolite for the same price. Like, yeah, but it's too big. It's just going to stay in the digestive tract. It's not going to be absorbed. So when people ask me that, my best example is I say, aspirin comes from willow bark. So you can shave all of the bark off a 100-year-old willow tree and eat that, or you can take one aspirin. Okay. So the whole idea is that because we've micronized and activated the zeolite, now we have something that's incredibly effective that gets into your body, goes all over your body, and systemically detoxifies. So that's that answer to powdered zeolites. And then there's lots of people with liquid zeolites. A lot of people add things like humic and fulvic acid, which is a trick to try to make the particles float. It surrounds the zeolite cage and makes it float, but there's no clinical necessity for those compounds. My favorite story is my very first competitor. The first company that had a competitive zeolite was called Denali. They were a network marketing company, and they created a product called Denali Tox. And all of their advertising was better than Rick's. That's all they said. It was better than my product. And if you went to their website, the testimonials were all our testimonials. Like you see a testimonial that says Marcy L, you know who that is, and it's her testimonial, and they're putting our testimonials in their websites. And we still see that with a lot of competitors, a lot of our testimonials. Regardless, all these people came to me and said, Rick, you have to get their product, you have to test their product, you have to prepare our distributors so they can answer questions about the product. And I just think, sometimes when you have a competitor, even acknowledging them elevates them. It gives them credence. And then I didn't even know if it was going to be a good product or a bad product. So my dad used to say, you don't have to swing at every pitch, So I said, you know what? Let's see what happens. Let them launch the product. We'll see what happens. Well, they launched the product. The first thing we found out is when you took the product, it turned your teeth green, which I thought was a negative. I don't think anybody wanted green teeth. The other thing too is within the first month, they put 5 people in the hospital with apoptosis, liver failure, because they didn't properly clean the fulvic and humic acids they added to the product. So that company, within a month, they fired the president. Within 6 months, they were out of business. And that was the first time someone tried to knock me off. Now, most of the other products out there aren't dangerous. They're just ineffective. They're usually large particles of zeolite. They're just going to detox in the gut. They're not going to be systemic. They're not going to go all over and pull things out. So let's look at my time. Yeah, I got a little bit more. First, let me talk about what the zeolite does. So we know it removes toxins and heavy metals, but what does that actually do for you? The word of the day is competition. The way heavy metals hurt us is they compete for good metals. We have good metals in our body, magnesium and calcium and phosphorus and sodium and manganese and boron and copper. These are physiologic metals. Metals are necessary for life. So what happens with heavy metals is they can displace the good metals. So I'll give you one example. My favorite example is zinc finger proteins. So zinc finger proteins are a family of proteins in the body, and their job is to help copy DNA. Whenever you need to copy DNA to make a new cell, you actually have zinc finger proteins go in and help unwrap the DNA and copy it. This is really important if you got a cut, a scrape, a broken bone, but it's vital when you have an infection. If you have a virus or a cold, you have a bacterial infection, your body needs to make more white blood cells to fight that infection. So it needs zinc finger proteins. This is one of the reasons that you might suck in a zinc lozenge when you have a cold. It's not for your throat. The zinc goes in your body and it upregulates zinc finger protein metabolism. So more zinc finger proteins, more white blood cells, so you can fight the infection. That's what zinc does when you're fighting a cold. So what's the problem? The problem is the zinc can be displaced from the zinc finger protein by arsenic. So a little arsenic is smaller than zinc. When it gets inside that zinc finger protein, it changes the shape of the protein and inactivates it. So what happens when you have arsenic poisoning? Even low-level arsenic poisoning, you'll see that your immune system shuts down. You can't fight an infection. Your hair can fall out. Your skin gets thinner. It's all about cell division. Your cells are not dividing properly because of zinc finger protein metabolism. So when you start taking the cell defender and you start getting rid of that arsenic, what happens? You're healthier, your immune system works better, and you heal faster. So one of the first testimonials I got when I launched my zeolite, someone was on one of these calls like this. Obviously, we didn't have Zoom, 20 years ago, but we were on a conference call. And someone said, I got a cut on my hand and I took your product. The next day, that cut was healed. Your product heals cuts. And I said, no, your body heals cuts. But the the whole idea is that the product takes things out of the way that interferes with that natural metabolic process. And so it allows those things to happen more readily. So you're going to find you're healing faster, you're healthier, you're not going to get sick as much. And then everything else starts to work better. It's a nutritional enabler for all your other products. So that's really how it works. When people ask me personal questions, say, will the zeolite remove this? Will the zeolite do that? I really just have my common denominator. A cleaner, healthier body fixes itself. The zeolite takes things out of the body, doesn't belong there, and a cleaner, healthier body fixes itself. And that's exactly the way the zeolite works. We have done a lot of clinical research. I will tell you the last clinical study I did was in 2012. So we need to modernize the data. One of the things we're dedicated to doing next year is to do some more clinical studies, some of the same ones we've done before, but with modern techniques. But in our clinical studies, we have one study, it was actually 3 studies we put together into one publication, was published in a peer-reviewed journal, and it looked at healthy individuals and saw a 7-fold increase in heavy metal excretion in those healthy individuals, which means that the zeolite got in, it trapped heavy metals, and it released those heavy metals through the urine. So a fabulous study in healthy individuals. And then my favorite study was in West Virginia coal miners. I said, let me pick the most toxic group of people I can think of. So we went to West Virginia coal miners, double-blind, placebo-controlled study, 3-month study. And we had them use either the active or the placebo. And we did heavy metal analysis in the urine. We also had them shave their chest. I want to use their chest hair instead of the hair on the head because the hair on the head was also exposed to the mine and the coal dust. So we weren't sure if any heavy metals would be from the environment or from inside their body. If we stuck to chest hair, we know that it's excreted from their body. So that's one thing. Sometimes heavy metals can be sequestered into follicles and out to the hair. So we had them shave their chest, and we took a gram of chest hair and measured the heavy metals in that. And we had them use the product. And we measured heavy metals of the urine at day 1, day 4, day 7, and weekly thereafter. And we measured the hair only at the end of the trial. We had them shave their chest again after 3 months. So fascinating. On average, we saw a 15-fold increase of heavy metal excretion with those coal miners. We saw no heavy metals in the hair at the end. It was at the beginning, there was tons of heavy metals. At the end, there wasn't, which means the zeolite effectively grabbed heavy metals and pushed it through the urine. So there weren't any heavy metals to be able to be sequestered into the hair. So that was really fascinating. Some things we got out of the study. We did a paper pencil test. We said, how did you feel? Every single patient reported they had more energy during the day. They were sleeping better at night. They had improved mental acuity, cognitive function improved. Most people said it was like a fog lifted off their brain. And then the thing that surprised me the most is they said their visual acuity improved, especially night vision and glare recovery. So we're really racking our brains about why that was happening. But we think what's happening is we have measured improvement of liver function in people using the zeolite. And we believe that that's because you're taking pressure off the liver by removing all these toxins. And so we have seen liver enzymes come down and livers get healthier. So if the liver is healthier, it's making more glutathione, which is a principal antioxidant that protects the eyes. And so we believe you're having eyesight improvement because of liver improvement. So a lot of moving parts here about a cleaner, healthier body fixes itself. The other thing I like to talk about in the coal miner study, we asked them, we said they can take the product any way they want, but we want them to be consistent in the way they take it and tell us how they took it. And so we had guys, a lot of people just put it right in their mouth, like most of you probably do. We had guys adding it to their food. There was one guy had mashed potatoes every night, put in his mashed potatoes. There's one guy that added to a glass of scotch every night before bed. It didn't matter how they took it, they got the same benefit. Get it in your body and it's going to work. So people say, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I put it in a muffin? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Get it in your body and it's going to be effective. It's going to go through, pick up toxin, heavy metals, and pull it out of the body. Now, I started by saying the Detoxolite story because for many years, I simply said my activated micronized zeolite. With Avini, we finally said, you know what? We need to brand our zeolite. And so we have trademarked the name Detoxolite. Detoxolite is the original micronized and activated zeolite that I invented. I am the category creator of systemic detoxification with zeolite and colloidal suspension of micronized activated zeolite. And now you'll see Detoxolite on the Cell Defender bottle. And then we also have Detoxolite in most of the other products. Now, that is a little different. The powder zeolite that we put in the Immunity, we put in the Plus Relief, we put in a bunch of the other products. That is what we call first pass. The particle sizes are a little bigger, about 3 to 5 microns. which means some of it will get absorbed, but most of the necessity of that product is for digestive detox and nutritional enabling. So you get better value and absorption from those products. So seeing zeolite and all the other products does not negate the need to take Cell Defender. You need to take Cell Defender, and then you need to take the other products. All right, so let's see. I already got a lot of questions. So I will say this, I'm looking in the chat. Obviously, I can have Howard open us up for live questions, but I do ask that no one asks personal health related questions, just questions about the science, the product, and the company. Okay. So someone asked, did you create these products through your past research with MS, ALS, et cetera? Not really. It's kind of weird how everything kind of interacts, I got involved with MS simply because in college I worked with cone snail venom. So we would go in the ocean and catch snails. We take the venom out, and it was a potent neurotoxic venom. In fact, cone snail venom is probably next to the sea wasp, is the most toxic venom and most fast acting venom. The Army actually uses a synthetic venom from Conus perspirescens, which is the purple cone. They use a blowgun dart. And if they shoot you with a blowgun dart, the venom is so fast, it paralyzes you before you feel the dart hit your skin. So the action of the venom is faster than the nerve signal that feels the dart hitting your skin. How cool is that? But that's how fast that venom works. So I did isolate cone snail venom. I published several papers, did presentations on alpha and omega conotoxins. That eventually led me to my work in cobra venom. I tell the story, it's really hard to milk a snail. It really is. You get very little venom from milking a snail. If you really want me to go into the mechanics of milking a snail, I'm happy to. But we found out that milking cobras was a lot easier, and the venom was very similar. So I started working with cobra venom in the early 90s. And that led me to the work in multiple sclerosis and eventually AMN, adrenal neuropathy, and ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. We're also looking at type 1 diabetes, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, myasthenia gravis. So a host of different autoimmune diseases because these function primarily as immunomodulating agents. So that's what got me into that stuff. And then the dietary supplement thing was separate. Please repeat what knock you off means. Well, yeah, knock you off means they copy me. So they basically took my invention and they said, we could do that too. Of course, they don't know how to do it. So they're making a knockoff product. They're making a copycat product that doesn't have any benefits. Breastfeeding takes Cell Defender. Will the baby get the Cell Defender with? Okay, so the question is, if a woman is breastfeeding, taking the zeolite, will the baby get the answer is yes. We actually did a study with nursing mothers. Now, I couldn't get IRB approval to use actively nursing mothers. So I paid women that were done breastfeeding but still expressing milk. I paid them to continue pumping. And they pumped for 2 weeks without the zeolite, and then 2 weeks with the zeolite, and 2 weeks without the zeolite. And we measured volatile organic compounds in the breast milk. And it was surprising how many volatile organic compounds were in breast milk. We measured benzene, toluene, dichlorobenzene, phthalates. And then as he took the zeolite, by day 3 of the zeolite, there were no volatile organic compounds being expressed in the breast milk. There was some zeolite being expressed in the breast milk, but we couldn't measure any volatile organic compounds. So most of the zeolite is going to be excreted through the urine, not through the breast, but some will go to the baby. Now, of course, it's perfectly healthy to give the zeolite to a baby. And that's important. I didn't talk about toxins and our exposure, but there was a study published in 2004 by the Environmental Working Group that looked at umbilical cord blood from newborns and found over 200 toxic compounds in that umbilical cord blood. So we're born with a lot of the toxins. Over 70 of those toxins were potentially carcinogenic or cancer causing. So it's perfectly safe to give the zeolite to a child, a baby, and certainly it's perfectly safe in nursing mothers. Does this improve gut health? Yes, it improves all health. Now, the zeolite in the Cell Defender doesn't directly do a lot in the gut. It helps the whole body, improving zinc, improving protein metabolism, improving overall health, acting as an antioxidant. Everything starts to work better, healing process work better. Now, the zeolite that's in the other products that we call first pass zeolite certainly helps improve gut health, stop heavy metals and volatiles from being absorbed in the gut. So all the products aid in some way, shape, or form with gut health. Which heavy metals soften bone? So it's a misnomer to say soften bone. but different heavy metals get sequestered in different places. Lead loves bone. So lead loves to go in a bone and displaces calcium. And so primary source of osteopenia and osteoporosis. So it's usually some sort of lead exposure that can lead to softening of the bone. Now we have seen, without really looking for it, people that have been using the Zeolite for years reported increased bone density, especially vertebral bone and hip bone. And we believe that simply because as you remove the lead, the calcium can be resorbed back into bone, you're winding with better bone density. Another side effect of a cleaner, healthier body. Let's see. Do you have an estimated date to launch the new app? I do not. I will tell you this. I went right out and tried to register the name Robo Rik, and it was already taken. So I don't know which one of you got Robo Rik. I did get Robot Rik. So I own robotrik.com. But we said Robo Rik in a call and someone ran out and got the URL. So I don't know who has it. I think the official launch is probably going to be at the summit, which is only about 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away. So the summit in Las Vegas. Well, Priscilla says this Sunday. So I don't know, maybe it'll be out this Sunday. So we had a meeting today about the strawberry meal replacement. We are not there yet. I'm sorry. We are trying a new concept to make it a strawberry cream and adding like a creamy feel to it. We're hoping that handles mouthfeel and takes care of some of the flavor. So I am working on different flavors for meal replacement. Right now, I'm very happy with the chocolate. The chocolate is delicious. People are getting great results with it. But I would like to make additional flavors. So I will keep you guys posted. I don't know what it means. So it does need to be taken on an empty stomach. The Cell Defender, never. You can take with food, without food, you can take it. It doesn't need to be taken on an empty stomach. So someone asked about D3 and plus balance. I've answered this many times before. There's a misnomer out there that what vitamin D is. First of all, it's not really a vitamin. Vitamin D is a hormone. It has so many effects in the body. It really functions as a hormone in the body. In fact, the vitamin D receptor, VDR, is on every cell in your body. It's a ubiquitous receptor. And vitamin D, depending on where it goes, does different things in the body. It's responsible for liver health and supporting liver function. And certainly what we know, the biggest thing is healthy bones and teeth. Now we know that because long ago we found that people that were vitamin D deficient or didn't get sunlight to create vitamin D got rickets, and they get weak bones and their bones would warp. So we always thought teeth and bones, teeth and bones, teeth and bones. But vitamin D does so much more than that. Now, vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So forever, we've been saying that you take too much, it could be unhealthy. But in literally hundreds of publications, we found that people can take as much as 50,000 IU daily without side effect, without negative issues. So you can take a lot of it without a problem. Sometimes doctors give you a huge dose. They'll give you 100,000 IU once a week. I'm not a big fan of that. I think it's actually much more efficient to take 10 to 20,000 a day consistently. Then some people said, I got one really nasty email where someone said, I don't think your guy is a biochemist, as if, because I didn't put K2. I didn't put vitamin K2 in the plus balance. They say vitamin D doesn't work without K2. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, it depends what you're using the vitamin D for. K2 drives vitamin D into bone. So if your whole point is bone resorption, you need the K2. That is not the purpose of the plus balance. It's not a bone product. It's a liver support product that balances hormones in the liver that allows your body to work more efficiently, eventually to make healthier hair, skin, nails, and blood vessels. So that's the whole point of the plus balance. So there's no K2 in it because I didn't want the vitamin D to be used in the bone. I wanted it used in the liver for liver function. Cell Defender helped me purge pathogens from my sinuses. Any pathogens on why? So that's a really interesting thing. So we found the first thing we saw is one of the side effects, and we actually called it an adverse experience. So anytime you have a drug product or a dietary supplement, something bad happens, you would call it an AER, an adverse experience report. And so we take those very seriously if someone reports something negative. So someone early on, we only had the product out for a few months, and they reported that this woman had a vaginal yeast infection. And then a month later, a guy called and he had an oral thrush. So he had candida in his mouth. And then we started figuring out what was going on. The body was getting healthier. Your pH was coming up. And so people with systemic infections were creating an inhospitable environment for those infections. And so yeast is a great example. Yeast had nowhere to go in the body, so it was running away. So it ran into the mouth of the man, it ran into the vaginal tract of the woman, the last place that was acidic enough for it to survive. So that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's terrible. You think you have a yeast infection, but that's because you needed the product and you're getting the stuff out of your body. Um, and so that's normally what happens. The body becomes an inhospitable environment for parasites, for molds, for yeast, and things like that. Now, additionally, I'm a strong proponent of the nano silver, because where the zeolite, the detoxolite, takes out all the non-living things that don't belong in your body, the silver takes care of all the living things that don't belong in your body. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antiprotist, antifungal, anti-mold, anti-yeast. So yes, it's incredible. The two products together work great to get rid of everything that doesn't belong in your body. So then this detoxolite remove mold, it's the same thing I just said. So you really should use Dano Silver if you know you have mold, but detoxolite does make an inhospitable environment for its growth. Let's see. I already answered K2. Clear pathogens, I just talked about that. The cell defender have cognitive issues such as loss of memory, Alzheimer's disease, dementia. So, like I said, a cleaner, healthier body fixes itself. We have literally dozens of testimonials on Lewy body dementia and Alzheimer's disease where people felt better with the cell defender. They felt like it was improving their symptoms. Now we do have another product, plus Mind and Vision, a great product for cognitive function. It does a lot of the same things that drugs for Alzheimer's do. It's got huperzine in it, which is anti-acetylcholinesterase, and that's what a lot of drugs do for the treatment of Alzheimer's. So a great product for anybody that has any cognitive issues at all. Okay. Over time, we'll taking Detoxolite will get rid of aluminum and mercury. Yes. Now understand the way the zeolite works is it doesn't go in the cells. It's too big to get through the cell membrane. It floats around the lymph and the blood all over your body, and it sucks up toxins that are in circulation. And it does it really, really well. It takes about 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours in circulation. Eventually, the zeolite will get full. And I say full with air quotes because it's not really full. What happens is it takes on a neutral charge across the surface. So once the surface takes on a net neutral charge, you simply urinate it out. So it's about 4 to 6 hours, depending on how much you eat and drink and how often you go to the bathroom. No zeolite stays in your body. It is not deposited at all. We've done exhaustive radio-labeled study with Bodipi and technetium. I did it myself. I laid on the table with this radioactive stuff in my body and took all the pictures to see, is this zeolite staying in my body? And it was 100% excreted. It does not stay in your body. There's no place for the zeolite to deposit. So that being said, you do have a lot of heavy metals that are sequestered. They're in fat, they're in bone, they're in muscle tissue. But what happens is you remove the circulating toxins, you create something called a concentration gradient. Because there's no toxins in circulation, there's toxins in the tissue. The tissue will slowly start to release those toxins into circulation. That's why you continue to take the zeolite. As you continue to take the zeolite, you'll continue to remove those toxins. Your tissue will continue to let go of those toxins. And over time, you'll have less and less and less sequestered toxins. So that's why you continue to take the zeolite. When people say, when am I done? You're never done. You're constantly exposed to toxins. You have tons of toxins in your body. You're born with a lot of toxins. You need to keep taking the product and keep taking these toxins out. Let's see. Can you take too much cell defender at one time? If yes, how does it present? So not really. The problem with taking a lot of cell defender at one time is it won't be absorbed. The cell defender, the zeolite, is passively absorbed, which means once so much crosses the digestive tract into the bloodstream, no more will get across. It won't cross against the concentration gradient. And so that amount is, depending on the individual, is about 15 drops at a time. So I say if you want to maximize your dose, don't take more than 15 drops at a time. You're kind of, it's not bad. You're not wasting it. It's just not getting absorbed and staying in the gut. It's going to be it's going to be good in the gut. So lower doses more often are the best way to take it. So when we talk about people that are taking the Marcy dose or the highest dose, we say anywhere from 5 to 10 drops every hour of the hour. The only other thing I'd recommend is that it can cause mild dehydration, because believe it or not, those heavy metals are electrolytes. You're losing electrolytes by taking mercury and lead and cadmium out of your body. So you need to drink plenty of water. People who do use the zeolite and they say, oh, it gave me a headache or I got muscle cramps, it's all dehydration. Just drink plenty of water when you're detoxing, especially if you're taking a very high dose. Day after I started taking treatment, my sinus began to purge. I felt sometimes, but good job. Parasite study, we have not done parasite studies with the zeolite. Like I said, if I was addressing parasites, I would stick with the nano silver. The zeolite certainly helps, but nano silver, that's its job. Can I use it with the parasite cleanse? Absolutely. How much silver for active infections? Well, it really depends on the infection. The silver is really, really powerful. So even if you took 5 to 10 sprays, I know Doug Dickey tells you to drink whole bottles, but if you take 5 or 10 sprays, it's going to do wonders. I told my story. I've told it plenty of times. You haven't heard. I had pink eye. I never had pink eye in my life. My wife gets it all the time. I guess she uses different makeup and she winds up with pink eye. But I had it. I was miserable. Nothing worked. I was like shoving things in my eye, I couldn't sleep. I was so miserable. And I'm a terrible patient. I really am. My wife had her ophthalmic drops because she has pink eye all the time. And I tried that and that didn't happen. At one point, my wife goes, spray the silver in your eye. I'm like, what? It didn't occur to me. She goes, spray the silver. I said, is it going to hurt? She goes, no, it's not going to hurt. My wife is telling me this. So I very trepidatious. I held my eye open and I sprayed it thinking it was going to really hurt. It didn't hurt at all. And overnight, my pink eye was gone. Even with medication, that usually takes 5 days. It was gone overnight. The next day, it was completely gone. I was like, this stuff is amazing. Um, so is there any medication that should not be taken with this? So not really. The only thing I really warn about with the zeolite is it will remove heavy metals. So medication that contain heavy metals, usually chemotherapies, particularly top platinum-based chemotherapies like carboplatin and cisplatin. So I've been telling people for years, if you're on a platinum-based chemotherapy, then you need to discontinue taking the zeolite a day before your chemo and start again 2 days after. That gives the chemo plenty of time to work. So I've been saying this for years, and then in 2022, a study was published in cancer patients using clinoptilolate zeolite, and they used that same recommendation. They discontinued a day before, started 2 days after. So whoever did that clinical study, it wasn't me. I didn't have anything to do with it, but someone went to one of my lectures, because they did exactly the way I recommend. And the coolest part about that, I really wish they followed it for efficacy as far as cancer, but they were really looking for prevention of side effects. And the number one complication from platinum-based chemotherapies is called chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy, CIPN. And so the chemotherapy actually causes nerve damage, which leads to permanent neuropathies. And they warn patients of that when they're given their chemotherapy. So in this particular study, all the patients that got the zeolite, none of them exhibited peripheral neuropathy. It eliminated the side effect from the chemo. And the patients actually did better. So they had better outcomes, fewer side effects. So that's what I'm saying. Use with medication, especially chemotherapy, you're going to get better outcomes with fewer side effects from the medication. Let's see. Oh, wow. I'm getting a lot of questions. I'm almost out of time. The dosage for the coal miner. Yeah, I couldn't really tell them take small doses all the time. So it's 15 drops twice a day. So you took it in the morning and at night. I really would have liked them to take it more often. I think they would have had better results. Can any of these products help with the spider bite? Listen, there are some serious spider bites out there. If you've got bit by a brown recluse or black widow, seek medical attention. Certainly, a cleaner, healthier body fixes itself using the nanosilver gel, which will help prevent infection. But if you've been bitten by a spider, seek medical attention. Okay. Plus release twice a day with the max. I have a wrist issue that affects the nerves. There is no max for the plus relief. We've actually given healthy volunteers the equivalent of a 30-month dose without side effect. So it cannot hurt you. Some people do need more, especially at first. And this is one of the coolest things about the plus relief. Your body grows more sensitive to it over time instead of resistant to it. So over time, you can use less and less and get the same benefit. So when you first start taking it, take big doses. That's fine. You can take a lot. I've actually had people drink a whole bottle. Take off the top and drink a bottle, and they get really good benefit from that. But the whole idea is take bigger doses at first, and then you can lower the dose over time because it works better and better with lower doses. Let's see. Spray the silver in the CPAP when it's getting, it's perfectly good as a disinfectant. How much zeolite daily take? We talked about that. The recommendation for the average healthy individual is start with 10 drops 4 times a day. We call that the detox dose, breakfast, lunch, dinner, bedtime. And then you can reduce to what we call the maintenance dose, 10 drops twice a day. That's what everybody should really be on. And then every 6 to 12 months, repeat the detox dose. But there are people that want to take more. It's perfectly healthy to take more. Um, 2 times a day. So someone said main I muscle tested weekly, started 13 twice a day. Now 2 months later, flatlined to 3 twice a day. Good. Okay. That'll work. Can mind and vision increase blood pressure? It shouldn't. There's no reason mind and vision would increase blood pressure at all. Yeah, there's nothing in it that's vasoconstrictive, so there's nothing in it that should increase blood pressure. Um, so will it remove silver? The zeolite, I'm guessing. No, the zeolite has very low affinities for silver. Silver ions are +1. And of course, the nano silver is 7 to 10 nanometer spheres, so they're too big to be captured by the zeolite anyway. So it's not going to capture the nano spheres in the nano silver, and it's not going to really capture ionic silver either. Drink too much water while it could be a challenge, right? Electrolytes must be placed as well. Yeah. So I don't think drinking too much water is a challenge. If you just make sure you're staying hydrated, what we normally recommend is 6 to 8 glasses a day is great to prevent any side effects from using the product. But yes, most of us are dehydrated. Most of us can benefit from the plus hydration. It's going to provide the electrolytes. It's going to be healthy rehydration. So yes, especially if you're using all these products and you want to stay hydrated, it's certainly healthy to use the plus hydration. So someone's giving me flavor for the meal replacement. Caramel, pumpkin spice, and coconut. Guys, I gotta say, we have to try to appeal to the most amount of people. The most amount of people are not going to want pumpkin spice or coconut. So we try to stick to chocolate and strawberry and raspberry and orange, stuff that's going to appeal to the most amount of people. It doesn't mean you can't add stuff to it. I mean, my wife mixes the fiber with the meal replacement and it's orange and chocolate, which I got to say is surprisingly delicious. The orange with the chocolate. Let's see. What's the difference between joint pain and nerve pain? That's a great question. One of my first slides in my Plus Relief Masterclass looks at the different types of pain. Pain is denoted by which nerves get innervated. So most people that suffer from pain suffer from something called nociceptive pain. That's the nociceptive nerves on the surface. So that's you cut, a scrape, you get a burn. That's nociceptive pain. Neuropathic pain is a little deeper. That's when the nerves that carry from the surface to the inside get innervated. And then visceral pain is even deeper. Visceral nerves are deep inside. Most men will never experience visceral pain unless they get shot, stabbed, or get a kidney stone. Women experience visceral pain in childbirth. That's when a woman says, "You'll never feel like this" to their husbands. She's right. You'll never feel like that because it's a specific type of horrible internal pain. Now, the wonder of it is almost no pain medication works in visceral pain. Even opiates don't work in deep visceral pain. The Plus Relief does. The Plus Relief works in deep visceral pain. It actually affects the parafascicular nucleus in the brain where pain is processed. So it reduces pain and inflammation, no matter where the pain is or what kind of pain it is. Let's see. Started neuropathy after chemo. Okay. Should Cell Defender be used topically or fasting? Yeah, Cell Defender can certainly be used topically. A lot of people like to do that. They put it on. Marcy had a whole thing where if she had a sore or something, she would put gauze on it and soak the gauze. So there's lots of testimonials out there. You go to avinihealthtraining.com and look up all the different ways that Cell Defender is used topically. Do any products help with telomeres? I don't know. I'm not a big, I actually wrote a book called The Telomere Race, and it's about do telomeres actually lead to longevity? Because we've made knockout mice that had no telomerase, so they didn't make telomeres, and that overproduced telomeres, and it didn't change their physiology whatsoever. So it's a kind of story out there because if people don't know, let me make sure people understand what telomeres are. So DNA looks like an X. There's two things that it's top and bottom like this. And in the middle is a centromere that holds the two pieces of DNA together, the chromosomes together. But DNA is really, really sticky. To prevent the DNA from sticking to itself, the ends are capped, and that's called telomeres. There's repeating base pairs. Now, every time a cell divides, the telomere gets smaller and smaller and smaller. At some point, the telomere disappears, and that cell now dies. The DNA crimples all together, it gets all sticky, and it kills off the cell. That's called the rate of mutation. So there are some cells that are immortal. They make an enzyme called telomerase that rebuilds the telomeres, like sperm cells have telomerase. So cancer cells make telomerase. So cancer cells become immortal. So they can replicate as much as they want. So there have been studies done where if we could block telomerase, would it stop cancer, as an example? And that didn't work. And then there's other stories where if we can upregulate telomerase and make all the cells immortal, will you live forever? And that didn't work either. So there's not a lot going on with the telomeres right now. It's kind of a marketing thing where people say we affect your telomeres, you're going to live forever. So I'm not a big fan of that. And like I said, I wrote a whole book on this. So if people want to do a deeper dive on telomeres, I'm happy to talk about it. You said to begin the cell defender 4 times a day, but I didn't catch how many. 10 drops 4 times a day. We call that the detox dose. 10 drops 4 times a day. Does plus relief work on headaches? It does, but the number one cause of headaches is dehydration. So make sure you're hydrated. If you have a migraine or something that's a different type of headache, certainly Cell Defender, the plus relief will work. In fact, we've done studies in migraineurs, people who suffer at least 3 migraines a month. They use the oral spray daily as a preventive. And if they actually get a migraine headache, you can rub the gel on your temples and the back of your neck, and the migraine goes away really fast. It shortens the time dramatically. Can plus release spray be used during labor? It can, but you got to see if the doctor will let you. I actually tried to get them to use it in an epidural, and I couldn't get approval. Because it would be a really safe, because it's not a nerve block, it just dials down the pain. So it would be a really safe way to do an epidural, but I can't get anyone to do it yet. Someday I'll get an IRB approval for that. Will plus relief be used? Let's see. What's that? Will it show up in a drug test? No. You're talking about micrograms of coprovenom peptides are broken down really fast. It won't show up on any test. We have a guess here when you hear specific on Cardio Plus. I mean, I'm actually way over my time, but I'll say we have a Plus Cardio Care. I like the Plus Cardio Care because it always annoyed me when someone said their product was for cardiovascular health and you didn't know what it was for, because there's so many parts to the cardiovascular system. So this particular formula works in the entire cardiovascular system. There's components that strengthen the heart as a heart muscle. There's components that help with good rate and rhythm. There's components that help clear out the large arteries and make them more flexible, arterial and atherosclerosis. And there's components that actually help relax the surface circulation. So you get better surface circulation to your hands, your feet, and even your sex organs. So it works in your entire cardiovascular system very efficiently. I'm sure you've heard Robin and Mark's testimonial. I don't know if she wants to pipe in, but I know that we're already going over time. So let me try to get through the last couple of questions. Question for you, Howard. How soon will it be available for replay? Let's see. Will you explain about the aluminum inside the zeolite? Yes. So all zeolites are sodium aluminosilicates. Okay. The main components of the zeolite are aluminum, silica, and oxygen. That's it. But the aluminum is an aluminum surrounded by oxygen, 4 oxygens. The silica is a silicon surrounded by 4 oxygens. They're inside the bars of the cage. The aluminum doesn't get out, the silica doesn't get out. It's in the tetrahedron that forms those vertices along the cage. So there is aluminum in it, but it is not a source of aluminum toxicity. In fact, in every clinical study, we measured aluminum excretion, and we saw aluminum excretion go up, at least 7-fold in all of the studies with the zeolite. So there is aluminum in it, intrinsic to the structure of the zeolite, but that aluminum is not available to be absorbed. Okay. Nanosilver gel or spray in post-op surgical wounds. Yeah, it's perfectly safe. The gel has some TEM, so it's got a gelling agent. It's probably better to put the spray on a wound than the gel. Okay. Okay. Friendly reminder. I'm over an hour. Okay. Okay. I think I'm done. this was a lot of fun. I hope I told you something you didn't know before.
Okay, Rick. So normally you give a three credits for this talk. I think this is worth 5. I believe. So anybody that's got this, you get 5 points towards credit. And
Avini
everybody can
University.
unmute and say thank you, Rick.
Hey, Howard, can we all do our salute to Rick
Thank you.
with our cell defender?
Oh yeah, okay. Salud. Oh, let me take off my screen. You can't see it.
Oh, Rick's got to look up.
I know. I'm trying to turn off my background.
We actually did it right as you started, Rick, but you didn't catch us. You had a whole bunch of us taking our cell defender.
There we go.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe on the
there we
count
go.
of 3. Let's do it on a count of 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Rick.
To Rick.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Cheers.